Hello, everyone. This has been, I think it's been a while since we've been here. Over a month. So happy
Years.
New Year to everybody. Anyway, we're not doing sticky notes necessarily every week these days. A lot of real life gets in the way kinds of situation. However, we're back, all three of us, and we're going to be talking today about a meaningful topic in this day, in this environment, which is sanity. How do we stay sane in crazy times? And these are crazy times. So I'm Cory Lebson. I am here with Chris Notter and Amanda Stockwell, and we will be chatting today. I will say also, when we posted this, there was just kind of a hint of vaccine, and now, I've actually coincidentally talked to people in three different countries, and everyone has the same story. Like, the vaccines are starting to roll out, but it's kind of slow. Maybe not enough. The older folks or people with certain conditions or whatever. But it's coming. It's coming. And so I'm thinking, as we talk about sanity, how do we stay sane in these times? Hopefully these times aren't going to last that much longer. I mean, probably we have a few more months, no matter where in the world you are. Some countries better than others, even in the States. Some states better than others, but we still have a bit longer. Where COVID times, where we're trapped at home, we're working remotely, maybe in a good way, maybe not so in a good way. But really, it's not so much about the work we do specifically that we want to talk about. It's really talking about the other things we do, so that when we come back to the work, we stay stable, we stay sane, we stay kind of focused on our work. By doing whatever it is, that for each of us is different. So we'll talk a little bit about for ourselves. If you want to comment and tell us what you're doing, certainly feel free to put that in the comments, and we can discuss those ideas as well, and kind of maybe have some ideas for ourselves, for all of you, about what you can do. You can find us in the usual places. You can find us certainly here on LinkedIn on this post. You can find us on Twitter at Stickynotes chat. You can find us on the web at stickynotes.chat. And where else can you find us? You can find us on Twitter. I already covered that one. I think, yeah.
Speaking of insanity.
Hashtag Sticky Notes chat. And email, I believe, is chat at stickynotes.chat. So those are all the places you can find us. Of course, look up all our old episodes if you so choose from 2020. And yeah, so what about you guys? What do you do to stay sane in these crazy times?
Amanda.
Well, I think maybe one thing we should talk about first is sort of what we mean by crazy times and what we mean. I think everybody knows 2020 was a tough year for most everyone in the world. But I think one of the things that has helped me with kind of figuring out how to deal with it is to think about how all the different things impact people, so that you can kind of try to break down why certain things are bothering you. So for instance, prior to the pandemic, I was someone who traveled a lot. And while, yes, it could be exhausting, and I sometimes spent so many hours in random airports or on trains or planes or automobiles, I got a lot of sort of renewal time when I was like seeing something new. And so for me, it wasn't just that I missed traveling because I don't like my house or I don't like where I live. I missed the experience of getting to meet new people and do new things and see new things. And so I think that the thing that I'll kind of start with is sort of do some reflection on what it is you actually miss, right? Or like, what are the components of what's going on that are stressing you out, and how is that manifesting for you? Because it looks different for everybody. There are some, kind of very obvious, like logistical things, like, right, I can't fly right now. That's a bummer because it means I can't go see my family. That's very obvious. But there are some other kind of more nuanced pieces, I think, of any stressful time in your life, but particularly now where nearly everyone is having some major amount of stress. It has been for a long time. I know it's 2021 now, and I'm very, very grateful to have turned over a new leaf in many ways. But things don't magically disappear just because the date changes. So I think the first thing I'll say to people is kind of like think about and reflect on what truly you miss and try to find ways to make those things happen. So again, for instance, I really love the part of traveling where I'm wandering around a new city, or we end up in some random hole-in-the-wall restaurant that I end up really loving. That experience for me is not exhausting, it's renewing. So although travel is restricted and there are a lot of places I can't go, my husband and I and the couple that we have been quarantining with rented a cabin a couple of hours away that we could drive to. And there were plenty of outdoor things to do because it's in the mountains. And so I could kind of have some of that same experience without actually leaving my state or without actually kind of doing anything. So that's kind of the first, and that's a pretty meta thing, but I think in order to kind of address whatever toughness you're having, the first thing I recommend to people is to kind of figure out what really is it about it that is bothering you. Like maybe you love working from home, but you miss the, after work social events or something. So me like kind of reflecting on that piece first. So I have way more thoughts, but for me, that's been really crucial, is figuring out like, do I miss getting up at 4 a.m. to fly to like the other side of the country? Not always. But I can kind of get the elements of it that I like out of it.
I was kind of thinking along those same lines, particularly about travel. I find that travel is my reset button. When I home monotony, same things over and over, and so if half my time is spent traveling, that's my reset. That's my kind of, there's new, it's sensory. There's new smells, like, and it's like going to a different trail. Like I go on the same trail over and over again now, and it's like the one by my house, and I know how that trail smells. I know like the different plant sections that you and there's no new smells. It's that sensory reset. So for me, actually, one thing I brought show and tell to that. Is that
show and tell.
Yeah.
Cory came prepared.
Cory
turns into a robot.
I'm not gonna put it on, but it's the Oculus Quest 2 that I bought kind of right around the beginning of the pandemic, and I got an app called Wander, which is actually like lets you jump into Google Street View, and I got and actually downloaded Google Earth, which you actually need a cable for because it's such high bandwidth. It doesn't smell any different, but it does present a visual difference. Like I actually went back to some of the places I traveled to before, just to see them. I kind of wandered around some of the places I particularly like, some of the cities I liked, places I hadn't been. I tried to go on different trails, virtually. Not much data on that, unfortunately, so I couldn't.
So you don't like to start bumping into the walls or anything when you're doing this?
No, well, so actually, this is very interesting because it's got an external-facing camera, and you can map out you map out the physical space around you, and then you can actually walk around the physical space around you. But the other thing I did with this is that I downloaded an app called VZ Fit, and one called what is it, HoloFit? HoloFit, and they actually let you. I bought a cadence sensor, and this is one of the things I've been doing, only in the pandemic. I mean, I love being outdoors, exploring new places, but the cadence sensor hooks to. I have a adaptive motion trainer, and I have one of those little under desk exercise bikes. I can pop the cadence sensor on, and then I can actually bike, or the adaptive motion is kind of like a elliptical on steroids. So I could physically move through a virtual place, either Google Maps, which renders okay. There's some glitches, or a virtual place that's that's just created by by a team. But either way, you're just kind of wandering through, and that's one of the ways that I've dealt with my travel. But it's still not the same. Desperately want to travel, and haven't done that for a while. Even though I was traveling kind of mid 2020, but I haven't done it lately. And yeah, anyway, that's my story.
Cory actually sent me a little video of him walking through Paris, I think it was, and it made me sick watching it. It reminded me of doom-induced motion sickness, I think was the name for it, back when the first-person shooters first came out. And you'd be watching somebody else playing a first-person shooter, and you'd feel motion sick because you weren't the one controlling it.
I've got these 360-degree views, so I go,
yeah, for you it's fine because you're the one controlling it, right?
Yeah, I know the motion. I will say I did feel like a little like motion sick when one of the apps, they wanted to kind of make it a little more fun. So if you veered off the road and it was like a head tilted like movement kind of thing, they kind of like throw you off a cliff and you'd go, ooh. I was like, oh my, I couldn't do it. It was too much. Google Earth VR has a field of view filter, so when you're moving, it reduces your field of view to like a little narrow thing, and then it helps prevent motion sickness. Like feeling whatever. But for the apps themselves, when you're moving with your perceived motion, it's not too bad. So.
Almost like being there.
Yeah.
That's good for those of us who miss travel. Chris, how about you? Are you as much of a travel hound as Cory and I typically are?
No, well, not in the same way. I love traveling, but I don't like traveling for work because I find that when I'm traveling for work, I see lots of the same things: the inside of airports, the inside of hotels, the inside of conference rooms. Seen enough of that in my life.
Yeah.
I love being in places, but unfortunately what I found is when I travel for work, I often don't have the time to be in those places and do the work I'm doing at the same time. And yeah, you can take a couple of days at the beginning or the end, but typically you're just exhausted by that point. Well, I find when I'm working with clients, doing that work on site, it tends to be very intensive. So I don't miss that kind of travel, but I actually have a Sprinter van that I converted myself, so we take that places. And that's fun because it actually isolates you from everybody else too. We've not done much travel since, we were actually away from home when the pandemic kind of hit to start with in February and March, but we've done one trip since then. We can be very self-contained. We've got fridge, cooking, all that kind of stuff inside the van, so toilet as well. So yeah, we can actually go away without being too much affected by that kind of thing. I know there's some countries at the moment where you can't even go 5 miles away from your house. That is not affecting us at the moment. So I found that it's actually a relatively non-stressful way of carrying on traveling during this time. Also, I do a lot of stuff outdoors, so mountain biking and hiking mainly, and there's still lots of places locally to explore that I've never done before, so it's allowing me to do more of that stuff. I'm seeing the positives in that. I'm not able to go away to some of the other places I might have gone away to do things, but there's still so many trails in the local area that there's enough for me to do that I wouldn't have done otherwise because I'd have been exploring other places. So yeah, it's funny. I mean, so the first 2 years I was in the States, I saw more of the States than I've seen probably in all the years subsequently because I didn't think I was going to be here for that long. So I made the most of it. And it's almost renewed that for me. It's like, well, I might not be able to do this forever, or I might not, I can't do some of the things I was going to do right now. So I'm going to make the most of the other things I could do. I'm going to explore my state. And so, yeah, it's definitely led me to doing more of that kind of stuff. But I mean, and that's definitely on the what are you doing to kind of keep doing things you would normally do. But there's also a side of things where I'm not doing stuff that I would have done before on purpose.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, so no social media apps on my phone.
You're a smart man.
There's lots of people now going, don't take away my social medias. No. But I found that, the whole doom scrolling thing, I was doing it. So I don't do it anymore. I took social media off my phone. I was never big. I was never on Facebook anyway. But I took Twitter off. I took LinkedIn off too. And it's actually led me to being purposeful about going and seeking out news rather than having it delivered to me in a drip all the time and just reminding me constantly, like tapping me on the shoulder saying, remember, there's still this thing happening. Remember, there's still this thing happening. So instead, I have times where I go, and I also made kind of a rule for myself that I wouldn't look at it after 8 o'clock in the evening. So again, it's two things I've done to just keep me sane. Yeah, I mean, it is the thing that keeps me sane, rather than just having this constant urge to go check what's happening now. I mean, okay, to be clear, there's been a couple of days recently in the US where you basically just have to say to yourself, well, looks like nothing's happening work-wise today. and some of those are for negative reasons, some of those are for positive reasons. And in those situations, yeah, you pretty much have to admit to yourself, I was saying to Cory before we started, it's being distracted with a purpose, right? You're saying, no work's going to happen today, so I might as well embrace what is happening and really be a part of that rather than a part of what I thought I was going to do with my work. And I think giving yourself the permission to do that is kind of important, because then you don't stress out about it quite as much as you would have done. It's like, oh crap, I should have been doing my work.
Right. Well, I mean, I think people are just working more. I mean, that's the problem. Is what's the commute time, the travel time, whatever. What's been replaced by work, and to give yourself that permission to do something else, to have a different stimulus. Like to not be stuck with the same old stuff over and over again. Like I find I can't form new memories, basically. I mean, like everything blends into everything else day after day after day, and it was like we're talking about travel. The travel is new memories. It's always new memories. It's new things. It's new inputs. You tag things mentally by the places you are, by the people you talk to in person, and so on. And you need to have different stimuli, through the day. Different things. Whether it's that permission you give yourself to go on the trail, and I love my trails around the house. Some I'm explore further, but yeah, even if they're the same, it's different than my work day. So
yeah, I find personally, Cory, I think you're right. I find it harder actually to keep boundaries, even though I already worked from home. I find it harder to set boundaries when people are like, well, you can do this tonight, right? Because you'll just be at home. There's no chance you could be going anywhere else. And it's not necessarily a new focus for me, but I think for everybody in general, it's a cliche for a reason. Like, I think setting boundaries with your time, whether that's, with clients, if you're consultants like us, or within your teams or teammates, and sort of setting boundaries and being clear about, like, these are my working hours, or tonight I'm planning to get back to something later, but that doesn't mean that you should expect it all the time, or that doesn't mean I expect a response from you. And kind of, I think maybe all of this is forcing people to have some more of those conversations about, like, when do you typically work, or like, when can I expect this? And but I do find, I'm curious to hear from both of you, I find that it's harder to say no to things right now. And I have found personally that what I need to do, for speaking of keeping sane, I have been for a long time a person who is not good at being still. I have never been. Yeah, I know. You can't tell it all, can you? But I have pretty much always, when some sort of opportunity, presentation, client, project, whatever, I'm almost always like, yeah, I'll figure out a way to make that work. It'll be fine. And I know that it's a cliche to say so, but I really have been working on sort of saying, you know what? I don't really have time for that. Let me recommend you somebody else who does. And it sounds so cliche and it sounds counterintuitive, but I have not had any less clients. I have not, really seemingly, like, all of the offers or opportunities haven't suddenly all fizzled up and dried. Like, saying no to things does not suddenly make you persona non grata. Right. But I think this year had really forced me, because I definitely, like, over, I'd say, like, late summer, I was pretty burnt out, because I had said yes to an awful lot of things that all stacked up. And it didn't matter how creative I was with my schedule. There just weren't enough hours in the days and weeks to do them all.
And do you find then you start resenting the work as well?
It's much harder. So I will say, especially as a UX researcher, it's much harder to maintain the sort of open, curious mind and the like empathetic mindset that you need to have when you're in that place. So it wasn't exactly that I was resenting the work, but I did sort of get into a point where I was like, oh, can we just get the session over with? Because I have to write this other report because I've got this other thing.
Whatever you want to say. Just
Whatever,
hurry up and say it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found, I like, and that maybe is a separate conversation about like, how do you maintain focus when, despite all of your best efforts, you are now suddenly in the situation where you have to have this interview or whatever it is you're doing, and feeling kind of burnt out. But I definitely, I found it harder because I've found it harder to say no to things this year, and so I've really consciously made an effort. And by the way, that doesn't mean say no to everything either. It just means more carefully consider requests. It means say, yes, I can do that, but not on that timeline. Or, just kind of setting boundaries in a way for how things are done. And again, it's not really new this year. It's not really something that was like groundbreaking information to everybody, but I'm just one more voice to say, if you're considering saying no to things but nervous about it, it was just fine. I still get jobs. I still get all kinds of offers to do stuff. And I feel much more engaged in the stuff that I'm doing when I'm more mindful about what I choose to participate in.
I mean, I along those lines, I felt in 2020 some, particularly not the immediate beginning, but like a little bit later, work uncertainty. And I think the work uncertainty for me, and we're freelancers, so certainly in that regard. But I think everyone, not necessarily everyone, but a lot of people were feeling work uncertainty. Like, will my job continue? Will there be massive layoffs? What's going to happen with the economy as a whole? How's it going to impact me? And that work uncertainty, like, prompted me to say more, to say yes to more.
You were hoarding work like other people were hoarding toilet rolls.
Right. It's like, no, I don't want to say no, because even if it's not my ideal work, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. And I think it's true of the company too. I mean, even in-house, you could say, the work, I could say no, or if I say no too many times, or say I don't have time, or let's figure this out, maybe I'll be laid off. So I think some of that, I mean, I felt a little more confidence personally, kind of now than I did, a little under a year ago, because I mean, and I felt a lot of uncertainty for many months, but it generally seemed to work out. But I didn't know that. I didn't know, and projects were dropping, and then new ones would come, and then other ones would drop, and then new ones would come, and it was making my head spin. I just couldn't stay focused. Now right now, I actually have like about two light weeks, coming up before another study kicks off. And at first I was worried. I was like, well, I better find work. I'm like, you know what? If I don't, it's okay, because there will be work. It will come. And trying to tell myself that, which then helps to Amanda's point, to say, okay, yeah, you know what? This project isn't exactly a good fit, so I'll pass on that.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just project related, by the way. I know that we are all freelancers, so that is like top of mind for us, but there is a lot of stuff that you can say no to, right? Like, there are, if you're a parent, there are volunteer obligations, there are parental extracurriculars, there are...
How many Zoom lunches do you really want to do?
Yes. Yeah, and so let me just, like, to expand on your point, let me just say, like, you could say no to anything, not just clients or not just project work. And it's very freeing to realize, like, not showing up for a Zoom lunch or saying, you know what, I really don't have time. I'm sorry. Like, I know that we have all kind of jokingly talked about this before, about like, you can't say yes to every person who wants to get coffee and pick your brain under the best of circumstances. But I think that is the kind of thing where it's really totally okay and appropriate to be like, I really appreciate that you're reaching out and I wish you the best of luck. Here are some resources that I generally point to. I'm personally not able to respond.
And you don't even, it's one thing from, I have a little seminar I give on saying no, and you don't have to give a reason. You don't have to. So you don't have to say, I mean, you might feel bad lying to somebody. Like you might say, I don't have time. And then you spend the rest of the day just lying around doing nothing. That's fine if that's what you need to do, right? You don't have to give a reason. You should say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And that's enough. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny actually. My youngest daughter had insomnia one night, and she woke up, in the middle of the night, was up for like 3 or 4 hours, and we said, you know what, we'll let you sleep 2 hours, go to school late, and tell them you had insomnia. And she said, well, don't tell them I had insomnia. That's awkward. Just say she's coming to school late, and I'll be okay. And I said, really? That's it? Yeah. Don't do that. Just it's okay. It's okay. So it did, and they said, fine. I mean, she's a good student. She's never been late, all year probably, and she is in school in person. But it's every other week, so like I was like, oh, this worked. Like my 10-year-old daughter is teaching me, like, you don't have to give a reason every time. Just tell them what it is. But the other thing I was thinking was, sometimes it's not even. I like data. I think we all like data. But I like personal metrics also. Got an Apple Watch. Love it for for fitness. But I'm not wearing it right now. No Apple Watch. Because I just sitting around, I find it uncomfortable. But I still want the data. And I ended up in November getting an Aura ring. Which is like a biometric sensor, and the reason I got it was because.
Are you getting paid, by the way? You should have endorsement deals for all of these places.
Right? Yeah. It is like one of those TV shows. I had the Oculus. That was my intent. The ring was just kind of an add-on. But anyway, I got a generic biometric sensor ring. But I was trying to understand. How when I was not sleeping well, which I wasn't sleeping so well, life, and external, the news and everything was getting to me, and I actually I saw it. I listened to the ring, gave me a little advice on the app, like, oh, go to bed earlier, start relaxing now, things like that, and it's actually made me sleep better, which before, I mean, really, I slept perfectly fine before, or at least I feel like I did before this year, and it just the weight of the world got to me, and trying to use my own personal data to help has helped.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because I find that I got a Fitbit band, and it thinks I'm asleep when I'm working. Apparently, I just sit at my desk so still.
Zone out.
It thinks, with a low enough heart rate that it thinks I'm asleep. You had 10 hours of deep sleep today. I was like, really?
Very productive.
Don't tell my clients that.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually just wanted that, like, both of those things reminded me of something also, which is just a general sort of reminder. This isn't like a specific tip, but I've been saying this to a lot of people because somebody said it to me, and I was like, it really made me pause for a moment, that, like, it's okay to not feel okay with everything that has been going on in the world. And even if you are, in a relatively lucky situation, or if nothing is like personally a crisis for you at the moment, it is totally super normal to be in the middle of a pandemic, finding new routines, working from home for most of us, or, just finding new routines generally. And at least for actually a lot of people across the world, but particularly those in the States, having a lot of political unrest, it's totally normal to not feel normal. It's normal to have your sleep disrupted. It's normal to be more distracted than usual. It's probably not like the ergonomics of your desk setup if you're not feeling as productive as normal. And I think that a lot of people at the very beginning of the pandemic were giving each other a lot of grace. And I'm not sure that has extended throughout the course of the pandemic. So let me just be the voice to remind you that whatever you are feeling in response to whatever is going on, like, we're not going through normal times. The whole reason we're having this conversation is because, like, everyone we know is like, God, did you hear about that? Nope, I didn't do any work that day. I didn't even sleep last night, right? Like, everyone is, and it manifests differently in different people. Some people can't sleep. Some people are more tired. Some people throw themselves into work because that's all they want to think about. Some people can't think about work. So I just kind of want to be the like reminder that it's totally normal to not feel normal with this context going on in your life. So try to remember that and try to give both yourselves and others perhaps a bit more grace and a bit more flexibility than maybe you might otherwise. Because I think that, and this again, this is not something that is like, terribly new or mind-blowing. One of the things that I've been, by the way, down a podcast kick. I always listen to podcasts, but I've been listening to more. And one of them that I will recommend to everybody, I'll share this out later, is called The Happiness Podcast by a doctor at Yale. I think I mentioned it before to each of you. Her name is Laurie Santos, but she dives into like the science behind happiness and what we think will make us happy versus what it actually does. And so there's I think 3 seasons. She goes down if you want to like learn about the science behind things. But one of the things that is most interesting to me about that is that there are both really basic things that we think will make us happy that scientifically don't, and things that seem like so obvious or so repeated that they couldn't possibly as effective, they don't feel like they could be as effective as they actually are scientifically proven to be. So for instance, things like sleeping enough, eating well, getting exercise, being mindful about your choices. There's a big section in her podcast about meditation. And I'll be the first to say I'm not good at being still. Meditation was not really my jam. But there's an awful lot of science behind a lot of these things about the things we think that will make us happy and the things that actually do. And I think that a lot of times the stuff that's been interesting to me is like, oh, right, like when I sleep like normal and, eat balanced food and take walks, I do feel like so much better. Huh. And so it kind of goes to that data point that Cory was talking about. And kind of keeping tabs on what's actually happening and also being a little bit reflective and be willing to be like, yeah, I really should delete social media off my phone or get up off the couch and go for that run or whatever it is. Did you say
this was Laurie Santos, Dr. Laurie
yes.
Santos?
Yeah, Dr. Laurie Santos.
Throw that in the chat then. There we go.
Yeah. So it makes me think. One thing I realized, last year, as everything's going on, is that mentally, if I'm reading, I have like a partial like mental filter. Like I'd be okay reading. Oh, that sounds bad. Let's move on. When I'm watching or listening, I can't filter. Like I can't filter the emotion. So if I'm watching or listening to the nightly news, for example, it will make me not sleep well. Like I could look at the news. It's totally fine. So basically, I didn't delete any social media or news apps from my phone. In fact, I even added, 1 or 2 that were interesting. But I stopped doing anything visual. I won't watch news. Particularly when I'm not talking about like the lost puppy, but like when news is a little more stressful, more here in the States, more partisan, more uncomfortable. I can't watch it, but I can read it. And I realized that about myself in 2020, and kind of continue now. So any video options, either I don't take those options or I delete those apps for my kind of ability to have a mental filter.
Yeah. I don't actually have broadcast TV, or cable TV, so I don't get that stuff anyway. So I imagine actually, thinking about it, I would feel the same thing as you do, Cory. Less ability to turn away from it or to stop processing it.
Yeah. And it keeps coming at you. Like you see the first image and you see the second image and you have to take such an action to turn it off. And then you miss the next thing or whatever.
I don't know. So occasionally, if I'm walking in the street, I'll hear the news from somebody's house. It always sounds so frantic too. Like the news presenters are trying to make you fall. Yeah. So
it should be devoid of the verbal or the visual emotive aspects
Mhm.
to make it filterable. Like, oh yes, I will read that. No, I will not read that. Okay, I'll skim the first line. It's much, much easier, at least for me, to do that with words, without any extra stress.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at the comment. We've got a couple good comments here. We talked about limiting social media and news input.
Any hot tips?
Oh,
What did you say?
Any hot tips anybody had?
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing also, in addition to the video, is that sometimes I take my phone and I just put it on the charger and I walk away. So it's not that I'm limiting the apps on my phone. It's just I'm done with this. I'll check in an hour. I'll check in 2 hours, see what's happened. By the way, if you whoever's listening ever text me and I don't respond for 2 hours, you'll know why. But honestly, for a long time. But just
Wait a minute. So here's the thing. You see, there's this immediate. Here's another thing. Is about texting. You just said if somebody doesn't, if I don't respond right away, now you know why. There's this expectation with texts that you will respond right away. Nope. I'm doing it on my time, not on your time. I mean, sure, even for clients, actually, I was going to say I don't do that for clients, but I do. It's like, sure, you can text me if you prefer that mode of communication to any other mode, but I'm not going to take it like somebody set a timer and I have a certain amount of time to respond to it. I'll respond when I've thought about it or when it suits me to respond about it. If I'm in the middle of doing something else, I can't multitask. I know that, so I'm not going to do that.
It's also. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. It just reminded me of another point, so I'll circle back.
Okay, so I was just going to throw in, it's also eating. I try to make more of an effort when I want to eat a meal, even if I'm alone, which happens more, even with a family here, whatever. There's still more times I'm eating alone now, I feel like, than in the past.
Even though everybody's home.
but for a while, I would just take my phone, I'd plop it right down next to my plate, and something pops up, I pick it up. I've been trying to put it on the charger then, and then go eat, and then go pick it up again. And I think to Amanda's point also about intention, like intentional eating, focus on one thing at a time. Don't, even when eating alone, do you really need your phone sitting right next to you?
Yeah, well, and it brought up another sort of to your point about like intentional eating is like intentional whatever you're planning to do. And I think like Chris brought up, and I know I have previously felt this way, that there is sometimes a feeling, especially because mostly everyone is home, I feel like the pressure to like respond immediately things is higher. And I hadn't really thought about this that much, but I've always been someone who really likes to schedule and block out my time. And so I will literally on my calendar block out like this hour, I'm going to work out. This 30 minutes, I am going to respond. Like I know I need to read that email and respond to it in depth. So I'm going to do that. And for me, I know that not everybody's brain works that way, but like designating time for myself so that even if my to-do list is this long, I don't know if you can see the front, this long, that there's designated time to do it, even if it's not immediate. And I know like one of the things that, sort of like, I know a lot of people I know are kind of rushing from Zoom to Zoom or, Teams meeting to Teams or whatever platform you're using, right? But video call to video call. And so even if you get like 5 minutes in between meeting to meeting, most people, I think, will be like, oh, let me just like scroll through social media or check in on the news or whatever. And I have sort of started to make a list of things that I can do that are like soothing to me rather than stress inducing to me in those moments. Like I'll text a friend puppies, or I'll text a friend or family member, or like I'll purposefully do in those kind of like nuggets of time where it's not really enough time to fully read and comprehend your email anyway, right? Like I don't really have time to respond or do anything meaningful in those 5-10 minutes, but I might have time to like make a cup of tea and intentionally sit there and drink it and don't try to think about a million other things. And I personally have found that makes me actually feel more productive not less. Because I used to be the kind of person who's like, well, I have a meeting in 12 minutes, but if I just open this real fast, I can do some edits and then I'll answer this email and I'll jam it all in. And I have personally found that dedicating time to specific things, whether you stick to a calendar or not, that like dedicating and focusing on one thing at a time has actually made me more productive and kind of giving myself permission to be like, I'm going to look at puppies, or, hey, I have a dog. Why don't I go pet him for 5 minutes, right? Like, and kind of purposely taking moments to step away or moments off. I highly recommend it, kind of giving yourself that break.
Well, if you could see my calendar right now, right after it says sticky notes, and then right below that, right after that, it says go running on trail. So yes, I'm there with you on that. So.
Yeah.
So, and if you want something to read during those times, I'm going to put something in the chat. Everybody's probably familiar with who David Byrne is as a musician, but he actually about a year and a half ago started up a project called Reasons to be Cheerful, which is positive news that you get sent to your inbox. So I'm not sure if either of you have heard of this before or not, but it's actually kind of nice things that have happened in the world or encouraging things that have happened in the world. So I subscribed to that a while back, and I'm not normally into the puppies kind of stuff, but this is kind of cool. It's stuff I would never have heard about otherwise, and it's just cool news articles that his team has curated and put up there. You don't get very many. It's not like a regular news site, but 3 or 4 a week, and that's just enough to kind of make you think, oh yeah, there is still some good in the world. So I'm putting a URL in the chat for people who are interested in that. And by the way, nobody in the chat has actually said anything to us this week. Come on, people, what do you do? How do you deal with
Man, I was
stuff?
relying on getting
asked questions. Nobody's responding. You are allowed to stop us blathering on about our stuff by telling us what you're up to too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I really also the other thing that I've realized in the last year is that have sensory things while I'm working. So I'll continue with the show and tell here. It'll be backwards, but let's see if that shows up right side or backwards. Sun and sand, a scented candle, with a little light, but it's it smells like the beach, and I'm like, oh, this is all, but it's sensory, and I've got here. No, it's not backwards. I don't think.
No, it comes out the right way around.
Candy cane iced tea, and I like just I opened it up. It smells like candy canes, and I drink it too. But again, it's like this sensory. Like I want sensory stuff. I don't. There's not enough sensory stuff. It's very staring at a screen. So even while I'm working, I want different sensory things, and whether it's the visual or the smell or whatever, it's different. It's something. It's sensory. So.
And you work in a basement anyway, Cory, don't you? So you don't even have windows to the outside world.
If you could see 360 on here, there aren't no windows.
Yes.
Which is also finding good when I was really I was traveling half the time. I was like, okay, I won't be in here more than half my time. I can always go up to the main level of my house and see outside if I want to even sit outside in nice weather. But I was traveling so much, I didn't care. Now I do care more. I do find, the lack of window means I'm going, upstairs more to try to kind of see the outside world. I even thought of taking my laptop and sitting in the car and in the driveway. I haven't done it yet because it's maybe 40 degrees out, so it's a little chilly. Hurt the environment and waste gas just to run it. But yeah, definitely something.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't really talked much about yet, and I think that maybe it's kind of obvious because the three of us are here together chatting, and what you may not know is that often before and after the talk, depending on what our schedules look like, we often end up chit-chatting for 15 or 20 minutes.
In fact, we thought we ought to sell tickets to the post-show event so you could actually look in and see on what we say offline.
The banter that includes much more cussing. But But one of the things that I know has been a struggle for a lot of people this year is social connection, and whether you're introverted or extroverted, having some sort of support system and finding ways to connect to people in a meaningful way that isn't necessarily like sitting on a Zoom and in the 2 minutes before your meeting chatting. For instance, around the holidays, you know, the morning of Christmas, my parents are in Maine. We weren't able to travel to see them. So we had Zoom on, but we weren't just like sitting there talking to them. We were like eating breakfast and making like opening our presents and, you know, kind of like hanging out, but not being quite so direct. And I know I have another friend who mentions that like every Sunday she like kind of cooks for the week, and she and her mom will both do that, and they'll just kind of like chat and cook at the same time. And there's not so much pressure or so much like, because Zoom fatigue is a real thing. It's super true. And so I would just kind of remind people that like, even if you're introverted and you don't mind being home alone, that we need other humans in our lives. And so maybe for you, you prefer text. Maybe you're okay with just like, you know, participating in a chat in something like this or watching something like this. But don't forget that just because you might be tired of Zoom, that you might not need some social connection somehow. And that it really does make a big difference. And I will also say there have been times where I've been, you know, I've just run a bunch of interviews and really tired. I don't really feel like it, but I always feel better afterwards. So little reminder.
We started a weekly thing with two of our neighbors, one of which we didn't even live here when the pandemic started. And we set up in our backyard, we set up 2 socially distanced fire pits. We had one, you know, the metal, like the metal liftable kind. We set up one, you know, set them up kind of far apart, set up chairs socially, like buckets of chair of three sets of chairs socially distanced, and have like once a week evening happy hours. And we never would have thought of that before the pandemic. I mean, I didn't even know one of these neighbors before the pandemic. But it's really just, you know, everyone needs this so like, and in-person social time too. You know, there's only so much virtual social time you can do. But you know, because of the pandemic, this is kind of what emerged as kind of like a way for all of us to have human contact in a socially distanced, COVID safe way. Even, by the way, like in we've gone down to like 30 degrees. You know, bundled up, you know, really bundled up, and with the hats and the gloves and whatever. But still, you know, it's that social interaction. You know, so.
That's really cool. Yeah. Wow. This ended up being kind of a whole list of different self-help tips, I think, didn't it?
It's fun. It's fun to talk about happy stuff. You know, like what's happy in a stressful time. So.
Yeah. And because nobody actually offered their own tips in our audience, God, people, that means we've run out of things to say, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're tapped out of information. However, if anybody does have any hot tips, I would love to hear.
Yeah, put them in the chat. And actually, by the way, after we sign off and have our post game show, you know, we'll be like, oh yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah.
But no, we'll put it in the chat too if we think of it. So.
Yeah. And we'll also put those links up on the website afterwards as well for people who want to check out those things subsequently.
Yeah. So, well, this has been great. You know, and normally we'll tell you, you know, we'll have our next Sticky Notes chat on this date and this time and such. We don't know yet. When
because we're being relaxed about the whole thing.
Ever. Yeah. But you know what? Sticky Notes chat was our thing from the pandemic.
Yes.
It was one of the things that we all said, hey, we need something different. Let's do Sticky Notes chat. But anyway, we don't know when it's going to be next. But because LinkedIn now gives the capability, when we do, just make sure to follow all of us, Cory Lebson, Chris Nutter, Amanda Stockwell. Follow all of us. When we post something, which can be up to 7 days in advance, exactly 7 days because I tested it.
Nice.
Exactly to the point. I tried 7 days in an hour, it didn't work. I tried 6 days and 23 hours and it worked. Because I was curious, but nothing else to do with the pandemic. But anyway, so it does give you the option now to say remind me, and if you see it anytime in the prior 7 days when we do post, just click remind me, and then LinkedIn will pop up a reminder for you saying, hey, you want to be reminded about this thing. It may, if you follow us, it may pop up anyway because I've gotten pop-ups from other people. So
We can't tell what LinkedIn does and doesn't do. So yeah, the best way to do it is hit the remind me button, and then you will for sure be told when we go live. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So that's your safest bet. And of course, you can find our old episodes, on Stickynotes.chat. They're on YouTube too, I think, right?
Yep.
And they're on YouTube. And then you can contact us. This chat right here, or email us at chat@stickynotes.chat, or find us on Twitter @StickyNotesChat, or find us on the website, or LinkedIn. Use or LinkedIn and Twitter for that matter. Use Sticky Notes chat hashtag, and you can find us. And yeah, I think I've covered them all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is great. Great to talk with both of you, and hopefully we've maybe inspired somebody to do something fun.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
Take
Take care
care
of
of
yourselves,
yourselves
everybody.
and each
Okay.
other.